Hello, welcome to the Let's Talk About Living Your Values. I'm Amy Johnson, and I'm
And
here with my friend and mindset coach, Sheila Arthur.
hello, everybody. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And we are hosting these conversations, these talks, these sessions once a month on the 11th of the month at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And today marks the 1 year anniversary. Woohoo! So we want to celebrate that. Starting to do these conversations. Sheila, this is something we started on 11/11/2020 at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And now we are on 11/11/2021 at 11 a.m. Pacific time and celebrating 1 year of talking about our values monthly and talking about how to integrate them, how to live them, how to align what we do with them and live a life that feels satisfying and fulfilling with direction and purpose. Because it's not always easy, but we find a path that helps simplify it for sure. So we welcome you. We wanted to create a place to have conversations, an open place, and to honor what it means to live in your values and to also discuss what is hard about living in your values, what doesn't work, how do you discover your values, what does it even mean to live a values-based life, and how do we define values is kind of a good place to start too. Sheila, do you have anything you want to add?
Absolutely. All of that is beautiful and accurate. And I guess the thing that I would want to add is just that this whole process of, and I say this, I think every single time that we meet, it's always so amazing to me, the things that I discover about myself as I go through the process of deepening my understanding of my values. And that comes from the conversations that we have, that comes from the questions, that comes from my own reflections about what's happening in my life and how I need to apply them, noticing when I'm not applying them, noticing when I'm out of alignment, noticing when there's that flow. And it's a wonderful compass. It's a wonderful guidepost. It's a wonderful internal way of just being very clear about what is most important and focusing on that, because that seems to make a huge difference in my life. And I'm just so grateful for having begun the values work and thinking about it in the context of values. And it's just been a wonderful, fabulous journey. And I'm just very happy to still be on it.
It is a journey for sure. And I want to share what values are, because people talk about values a lot out in the world, and it's often done in a very general way. And it's not, they'll say it's done in a binary way. So this is a good value, or this is a bad value, or they assign values to people and then make judgments around it. Or it's just talked about generally. You need to know your values, and then you have to pick them and sort of know what they are. And so what we do here is we have a different definition of values. So our definition of values are a single word or a short phrase that connects you to your authentic and truest self. They are a bridge between what matters to you, your innermost self, and the outside world. They act as your inner compass. So they will help you decide where you want to go, what direction you want to go in, and then what are the steps you're going to take and how you're going to do it, who you're going to be in going in that direction. So it's a very personal process that we talk about here. It's not one that is determined by any outside social construct or religious organization or political organization, anything. It's really about you getting in touch with you. And that's what we do in the workshop, the Discover Your Core Values workshop. And then we talk about it every month in this way of how to actually live them once you discover them and name them and find out what they are. So that's an important piece of this, because we talk about values, but people can sometimes feel like, oh, that's kind of not that interesting, or oh, boring, and it's not that way at all. What we talk about is something very dynamic. So, and Dorit, we're so glad you're here. Do you have any questions or anything? Do you want to check in? I think you're unmuted, but I can't hear
It
you.
looks like she's unmuted, but I can't hear anything.
My groups often focus on PERMA model and meaning making. And so part of meaning is values exploration. So that's where I insert it. And also it's an integral part of I do dialectical behavior therapy for clients that self-harm or attempt suicide frequently. And values work is important with that work too.
Oh my God, tremendously so. Wow.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I've been doing parent skills for DBT. So I have learned a little bit about DBT with my daughter too.
Yeah, it's great. I do friends and family. It's the same, parents, spouses, siblings, for people diagnosed with, well, not even just diagnosis, but really any emotion dysregulation that DBT skills are helpful for. So that's great.
Yeah. It's great work. Thank you for doing that work. We weren't able to hear you in the beginning. What were you mentioned something about groups, but I didn't hear what that was.
That I run groups for
Oh.
Positive psychology and so forth, and DBT, and values work is part of that. I don't know if you've heard that part. Yeah. And that
Yes.
I work as a psychologist. I run a trauma recovery center out of Harbor, UCLA. It's part of UCLA as a teaching hospital. So, and then I do research on PTSD. I'm an associate professor at UCLA as well. That's a little bit about me.
That is such critical work, and I'm so glad that the values part fits in with what you're doing, because I think that it's part of that place of people just trying to understand who they are and what's important to them and how they're functioning in the world and how they need to function, right? And I know just in my own experience, just having, been in any number of therapeutic kind of situations throughout my life, of just how critical it has been to just understand self in a different way. And the values is it's one of those tools that is so helpful for getting to that place. So that's really exciting to know that it's a part of what you do.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. And it's important internally, I guess, for me to practice as well and come back to my own true north and notice the drift when values drift happens, and continue to question that, like around crossroads, but I think in general, just every once in a while.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we talk about the recalibration of values and how they can also evolve over time, but the essence tends to be the same, but there's an evolution. And in the work that you're doing too, you are offering so much of yourself and helping others, that's also like times when values can be used to help keep you caring for yourself too, that in that balance, that harmony of caring for ourselves as well as taking care of others. I know that just being a mom and helping other people, that I can sometimes fall into the over giving side of things, and the values help me recalibrate to more harmonious life, so that I'm not so that I can actually be there for others and show up in a way. And
yeah, I mean, the way you speak about it in practice for well-being, overall
yeah,
I really like that. So it's a recalibration, and it's coming back to wise mind, essentially, if you think from a DBT perspective. And it's also self-nurturing, because it's like, to me, it sounds like you're saying, I count, I matter, and I'm going to recalibrate so I'm in my optimal health and well-being. Yeah, love that.
Absolutely. And you nailed it exactly. And also the values help in an instant be able to, it's a tool. It's another one of the tools that you can go to when you're not sure, to help bridge that inner self with that outer world. Because sometimes I can see something out there, but not really sure how to connect it internally, or vice versa. And that's how I use the values often to help me see how I can demonstrate in the world what matters to me. And then that feels really good. And I need the wise mind to help me do that too, to be able to access it and express it there. So it's so nice to have your perspective. Thank you.
All right, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Welcome, Carmelita.
Hi, Carmelita. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, very good. Hi, welcome.
Oh,
We were just getting acquainted.
And Carmelita's is in our current workshop right now, Dorit, and is just amazingly courageous and on this adventure with us and adds so much to the conversation. So we're glad that she popped in here.
Mhm.
And one of the things our plan to talk about today was sometimes we can hit obstacles in discovering our values or hit some roadblocks that can prevent us from really knowing our values. So I don't know if either of you have experienced that, or what are some of those that we see certain things, but people kind of face all different obstacles as they go into this work and discovering your values. How are you doing, Carmelita? Are you, not to put you on the spot, but how's it going this week?
yeah, no problem. I want to jump on camera. I'm just looking a mess, so I'll get on.
I don't think it's possible. We want to see your beautiful face. I
There
don't
you
want mess
go.
anywhere.
Absolutely.
There's no mess. It's beauty radiating.
Well, thank you.
Oh my
But
goodness.
I think the main thing, like I was explaining, is just really being conscious of everything that I'm learning and applying those learnings. And it's amazing to me how easily it is to understand, to know, to have the tools, the skill set, but still not apply it. And that's, I mean, I apply it, but I want it to be more at the front of my brain, more conscious, so that, like you guys are teaching, whatever I'm valuing, whatever I believe, that I'm acting on that in my everyday, all day. That's
Mhm.
what I want to do,
Mhm.
you know, and I just haven't gotten there yet. But I think the constant communication with you guys, the being in the group again for a second time, I think this is great. It's beneficial, you know, to keep practicing. And I think it'll just be a continual thing that I have to practice until I don't anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I applaud everything that you're saying, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure that there's an I don't anymore, because I think it's like the growth process, right, that happens in life as you keep allowing yourself to unfold, and more things, you get clear about more things, you allow more things to be. I think it's just an evolution, and it continues, right? So the whole part for me around, you talk about like getting to a place of like you know it here, right? But it hasn't quite seeped into here. So it's not quite something that you can just pull up, or it becomes part of who you are, right? And that's the work, right? It's getting to the place of having enough familiarity and being connected enough to those values so that they really do, when you use that word or phrase or think about it, it really does help you to make decisions. It does help you to navigate through your day, right? And the other part of that is that, and this I think is just so important, especially for me over the years, it's developing enough gaps, enough pauses in the day, because I can notice myself starting to react to something and I'm not really responding to it, but it might be an habitual reaction to something. I get triggered and I react, right? And when I notice that, then I can just put in a little bit of a pause and begin to think about how I want to respond differently. Like, how does it feel, right? Because the reaction for me never feels good. A response to beauty, a response to like whatever is happening, that feels fantastic. But when I'm just like without consciousness reacting to something because this is what I am still working through, I always notice a level of discomfort in my being. And so then I can pause and look at that and then say, oh, okay, that happened, right? So now I get to like reflect on my values. Now they become conscious in my mind. This is my process. Now I can like say, okay, I'm not crazy about the way I handle that, or not, I don't really want to have that experience. So now I'm aware that this is happening. And then I can start to catch it quicker and start to have that sense of creating that space to be able to do that. And I'm sure that you guys may have a different way of approaching that, but that seems to work for me in terms of how I anchor these values in and how they become who I am and I become the embodiment of the values. It's a process. And so, gentle, steady, consistent,
Yeah.
kind process.
Yes, I fully agree. And the pause, I am such a fan of the pause. Sometimes that's about all I can do is just pause, restraint of pen and tongue, not do anything and just be with the discomfort, or distress tolerance, right? Is a DBT term that I'm getting more familiar with. And the idea of the pause allows the space for a different way to come in. And one of the roadblocks actually for values work is an idea that we're supposed to do it perfectly. And so it's really important to watch that being too hard on ourselves and the perfectionism that can creep in. I don't see a time there's ever going to, and I've gotten so paralyzed sometimes, like, how can I do this if I'm not living in my values all the time? And it's just not going to be feasible, but the needle is moving in that direction. The more conscious I become, the better decisions I'll be able to make that are more in alignment. I'll sometimes have to change my mind because the first decision I made actually wasn't in alignment with my values. And then it's the humility and the courage to speak up and go, oh, I'm going to change my mind and make a different choice now. And this new choice feels more in alignment. And it's in those contrasts in a way that really the values work happens. So you showing up and saying what you just shared is the values work demonstrated. It's already happening.
Yes.
So I think it's important not to remember that there's no good or bad, there's no shoulds, there's no right way to do it. It's showing up is the best part. And then I do think the reason we have these conversations and the reason I created the values connection for those who did the workshop is so that we can stay tethered to it and stay accountable, because accountability is a piece of it. But I look at accountability as an arrow. It's an accountability arrow. It's the direction we want to go. And are we taking the steps to go there? Accountability not as a whipping stone to tell us what we haven't done right, but more like where we want to go and are we accountable for taking the steps to get there? And so in the Values Connection on Mondays, I invite people to share. Oh, Dorit, Values Connection is a community on Mighty Networks created called the Values Connection that's about bringing people together who want to add fulfillment and peace of mind through values work in the next phase, because they're probably going through a turning point or wanting to do it differently. And we practice living our values every day in that group. So on Mondays, we have Accountability Mondays, and that's in a way to like say, okay, this week I want to sketch this week, and that's in alignment with my value of creativity. And then at the end of the week, I can say I did that or not. And I had that on there actually for myself for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I didn't do it. So I wanted, because I like to sketch, I do like a 5-minute sketch thing, and I kept putting it on there and not doing it and not doing it. And I realized I had to make it, I couldn't go right to sketching because I couldn't find my sketchbook, and I really wanted to do it in my sketchbook. So my accountability action became find my sketchbook. So one week I was able to share my accountability action was find my sketchbook in alignment with my value of creativity. And then on Friday, I was able to share that I found my sketchbook. And then guess what? The next week I was able to draw and play with pens, which is what I was the intent in the first place, to play more. So it took a month. And sometimes it's that incremental 1% change that we have to do, and just break it down into a micro step, a micro step, a micro step, because those become obstacles too. It's that perfectionism. Oh, I didn't do it this week. I'm embarrassed. I'm not going to show up again because I didn't do it. It's examining it, taking the pause. Oh, what's really blocking me here? Oh, I don't know where my sketchbook is. So if I take a step back, that becomes my action. Find my sketchbook. It was not really anywhere hard to find, but I needed to take the time to do it. So it's a funny, seemingly story, but it really is that simple to break
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's helpful.
Very much so. It's like, I can't believe it. I just can't believe how much work this takes. I'm blown away by it, because even like you saying, I had the action, I needed to find the sketchbook. That was the first thing. So I appreciate that validation, because that's where I get caught up. I really start to beat myself up, like, oh, this was the goal. This is what I value. I'm trying to align these things. Well, I'm working on aligning these things, but there's always this little thing. Oh, the pen, I wanted to take notes. My pen ran out of ink, and so that can be discouraging. And so I appreciate that validation, that it really is some work to be done. And that's why I'm here. That's why I keep showing up, like you said, because it's important to me. And yeah.
I
So
love that. And I just really want to acknowledge
yeah.
and celebrate you for doing that, because I think it's just so important. And you're right, it is work. And I think that for me, it begins to feel less like work. There is a point in which it doesn't feel like as much work, but there still is effort involved, right? There's consciousness involved. So it's like not slipping into the unconscious habitual, but being mindful enough to like say, okay, this is what's happening. And I love what Amy said about being willing to course correct, right? You make a decision, it's not the right decision. Well, you don't have to keep going with that decision, right? You're not stuck. It's like, as a matter of fact, as soon as you discover it's not the right decision, the better it is for you like to say, whoa, change my mind, or I have new information, or I rethought that and I'm going to do something different. And that's such a wonderful way to honor yourself and not keep going down the path, because that becomes so disappointing, right? For me,
Yes.
if I stick with something and I know it's not the right thing, it's like, no, I'm not feeling good about what I'm doing for myself. I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not honoring myself. And so it's like, you get to change your mind when you have new information, or you think about something enough, and you're using your emotions, you're using your sense of the feelings that come up that are where there's dissonance, or there's a disconnect, or there's discord, or whatever it is, right? It just doesn't feel right. You get to use that, right, in service of making a better choice for yourself. And that's where, the values connects with other things. It's like it's a tool, right? But it's not the only tool, because you're accessing your emotions, you're accessing your presence, you're accessing the part of you that's that's kind of in the seat behind, observing everything that's going on, right? So it's like there's all this stuff, but then you can actually see yourself doing it. So there's this self that is in there that is like the deeper self, right? So you get to access that part. So it's like a lot of different things that you do to help make those shifts, right? So that you're living more in alignment, and the values is one piece of it. But then you're also engaging in all those other pieces, right? And I think the part about coming up short, that's like, oh man, that's like such a bummer, right? When we're just like feeling like we're failing on some level, like I'm not doing this right, or I didn't get it done, or there's still something in my way, and sometimes just observing that and just recognizing that, okay, all right, just allowing that to be is enough, because it gives you the space to make a different choice. And for me, that's always the best place to be, is when I have room to make a different choice, and I'm conscious enough to do that. It makes a huge difference. So I just wanted to share that with you too.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. And watching the self-judgment that comes in, because I can pretty much turn anything into a self-judgment. So I have to watch that. I would judge myself for judging myself. I was in my 20s. I had a therapist who was like, you're judging yourself for judging yourself. So watching that, I like am constantly aware of that, because that keeps me stuck when I do that. And I'll still do it today, but way less than I did many decades ago. And when I turn to my values, I look at them less as something I have to kind of live up to, and more to help me navigate those things. And it's a retraining it's a reframing in a sense too,
Mhm.
because I think we're trained that we're supposed to live up to expectations of others, and values aren't expectations in that way. And which is, we talked about again, the definition of values, because it is less about outside influences, and the outside influences are so loud, it's easy to forget. So I really appreciate what you're sharing today, because it's so key to this work. And the messaging, we get a lot of messages that are telling us we're doing it wrong and hurry up. And it's hard to keep them out and listen inwardly. And that's why we want a space to do that. Like, that's why we created this monthly opportunity to talk about it, because we realize it's just not talked about a whole lot. So it's important to talk about it, and because it isn't like the littlest decisions as well as the bigger decisions of our lives, it shows up.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I want to add that these expectations that are so hard to change the scripts around them, that's when I run into more and more values conflict, where
Mhm.
one value conflicts with another value, and they both seem important at the time, but one comes maybe from expectations society places, and one
Mhm.
comes from more of an inner campus. But
Mhm.
because it's pivotal, like for a role, like I'm a single mom, so the value I have is to provide and nurture and create safety and so on, and that means that I have to keep working, and I have to make a good enough living because I'm the sole provider, for example. And that doesn't necessarily align very much with my core as before I was a mom kind of core. It was
Mhm.
just be free, live for the moment, and feel a sense of abundance and not fall into scarcity. And I noticed that that's almost gone. Like the scarcity mode is so alive for me now. And it's not that I don't have enough. It's more that I worry about having made a choice to later in life become a resource parent, and then become an adoptive parent, and then do it alone, and also
Mhm.
have the enormity of some special needs and so on. And so then thinking about that's a value, the value of compassion and the value of giving and the values of reaching out to where I'm from, sort of my refugee background, and reaching out to refugees and being able to provide that to children. Um, so that was very aligned. But now it's in that scarcity mode. Is how will I continue to work? And I'll need to work for like 20 more years um, at this rate. So unless I change and I sort of become a person that becomes in private industry and starts working for money, not just for the value. So that's what I'm facing. It's kind of a crossroads for me,
Mhm.
how to shift to let go of the scarcity mode and still be a provider.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, that's huge stuff. That's really huge. Yeah. When you were talking about scarcity, one of the things that came up for me as well was just around how I had this image of you spreading yourself so thin, right? There's so many things to be done,
Right.
and so there's not a lot of time, energy, and bandwidth to do all of those things and to honor all of those parts of yourself, right? Because they're all important, right? But it's like what takes center stage. And that scarcity piece, I think, is one that is like, oh my God, that fear of not
Yeah.
being able to provide, that fear of, not having the resources, whether it's the people or the money or the time or the energy. I mean, that's something that I grapple with as well, just around just recognizing that it's like, okay, like the self-talk, all the other stuff, it doesn't change it, right? But it's like, is there enough? So how do I notice when there's enough, and how do I make it so that that's not the place that I go to, because that's my fear place, right?
Right.
That's my fear place. And when I'm in fear, I feel less powerful. When I'm in fear, I'm more reactive. When I'm in fear, I'm not able to be as responsive. So somehow for me at this point, because I'm in a different phase too. So it's like I'm stepping out in my career in a different way. And I'm finally deciding that, okay, this is so important to me to be able to just do this transformative work for people and to really help them to get out of the stuck places. And so I've decided to focus particularly on women who have had problems losing weight and keeping it off. So it's like they know how to lose weight, but they can't keep it off, and they're just unhappy, right? Because this was my journey, right? And losing 100 pounds and keeping it off for about 9 years. It's an entry point for me to like, how can I help people to feel better about themselves and to reframe this experience so that it's not about this sense of not being enough, right? So that underneath that is there's this need to be fulfilled, right? So you're filling up on stuff because you're not fulfilled, right? Which leads to the values. So there's something that's out of alignment. I'm not taking care of my needs. I'm doing too much for other people. There's not enough for me. So I do this because I need to just like keep going day to day, right? So whatever it might be. So stepping out into that space has been like, that's a new space for me, right? So there comes with that. It's like, oh my God, am I going to be able to make a living doing this? Is this like going to be something that I'll be able to like be in alignment about? Will I be able to then like go and do other things that feel even more important and more powerful? Like allowing this place to be. And so there's like for me, there's a lot of different things that I'm having to navigate through, because it is like a turning point. It is a change. It's like I'm making a change and I'm making a declaration. And you might be in a similar place where it's like, okay, I value what I'm doing, and I also value earning a decent living, and also value having the resources and the ability to take care of my people, myself and my loved ones and my family and my children or child. And so how do I balance all of those things and be able to say yes, and step forward into that place where I can do it all. I can do all of those things. And I think that's where the values work comes in.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That adds some insight. I think that the one of my values is having levity and freedom in life as well, and I feel that constricting
Oh,
with
yeah.
the others. So that's when the juxtaposition of one value that's really important and maybe long term kind of important in terms of thinking, as you said, my people, family, child, and my value of having my energy be about love and compassion and care, and it's not quite there when I'm stressed, right? So thinking about how to de-stress, and excuse me, one way that I know to do it is to take time for myself. And like, today is a holiday, so we're doing some values work. My child is here in the car listening, and she's only 5 though. Yeah. And also just taking the day completely off and like going to breakfast together and going to the beach, but that's kind of how I want to live my life more generally,
Right.
with that space and freedom, and I call it levity because it's free of that. I have to. Then you feel like you have no choice,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so then it's hard to not drift from values, the core values, when you feel helpless around choices. And it's not necessarily something that I can solve, but just reflecting and being aware, that's where I am, and then coming back to my wise mind, like where are my choices and what choices I can make despite the limit, and savoring that we have today. And tomorrow will be a 12-hour workday, but today it's a full day of freedom and yeah.
Yeah,
That is so beautiful. Amy, go ahead, because I know you have a lot to say about this, because this is like, we had many conversations about this. This is kind of like so current, right? For our own lives. So Amy, take it away, because I know you've got something to say about this.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for sharing where you are and what's going on. And there are so many influences on our lives. I'm a single mom too. And my kids are a little bit older now. One is 19 and the other is 16, my girls. And I've taken I live a creative life and have some space in it. And also my value of sustainability also implies financial sustainability and sustainability of my well-being, as well as caring for the earth and reverence for nature and all of that. So I use my values to help remind me that if I'm not doing, so it's kind of the flip of that too. So sometimes one of our values can be we could be over, what would be the right word? Just saying like, out of balance, right? So we go to one value over other ones too often. And then that's where that recalibration kind of comes in. And having a core set of values, like 5 to 7 of them, allows us to be able to see where those are and to do that assessment, and getting really specific about the values allows that to happen in a new way. So one of my values is flourish. And I wasn't feeling like I was flourishing, even though I had more flexibility of time. And that's what I've really prioritized for myself, and the autonomy for myself living. And at the same time, I wasn't flourishing. I just felt like I was just overwhelmed with the things I had to do. And I just think sometimes the world is structured that way. We are a doing world. So when you start talking about expectations of the world, I think therein lies a huge piece of the problem. So we have to really chart our own way and find that the clarity within that. So for me, being able to, flourish became a value that I realized I wasn't activating. And it tends to be the one I put aside sometimes. And so I've had to make a conscious effort to put that one up, because I'll go to integrity and I will go to sustainability first. And those are not, that's not how I want to live my life only. And I mean, I want to have integrity and I want to live a sustainable life, but those are much more about being the provider and being good and stable and security. But I heard Esther Perel say the extreme form of security and stability is stuck, right? So I can get kind of stuck in those, as opposed to flourish, which for me means about blossoming and blooming and being light and enjoying the moment and smiling more and having fun and playing and sketching. It took me a month to do a 5-minute sketch. Now, I don't mean that as a self-judgment, more just the recognition of my life isn't structured that way because I feel such a responsibility in life. But what my values can help me with is creating more time. So even if I committed to over the summer to do 5 minutes of fun and play for myself at least, and sometimes it went longer, and that just meant sometimes skipping down the road, taking a dance class online, just cause, things like that just allowed me to have more fun in the moment, as opposed to always kind of being in the problem solving mind. And I think that's one of the challenges of being a single mom and taking care and being the nurturer, the one who cares for our children, and then also the provider, because we can't really do both at the same time. And there's an expectation we're supposed to. So it's really about harmonizing it and finding the balance. And for me, it's having 7 values to look at. So I'm not always going to the same ones. And then where can I make that incremental adjustment as opposed to it being extremes, black or white, and where can I find more space for that in there and find the flourishing moments, because I want that in my life.
I love that. That's wonderful. I love the flourish idea. It's something I read and study quite a bit from, again, positive psychology and as a whole study of flourishing, and that makes so much sense. So yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm glad you came today to talk with us about it. So, and thank you for all the work that you do helping others. And I also want to just share, you deserve to also feel like you can have that for yourself too.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
Hi,
Yeah.
Terry.
Yeah. I'm just going to say that I find that having the values are so important just for yourself and your own well-being. But the larger piece of it for me is because when I'm a better person, I can give from a different place, right? So I have more to give. My cup is fuller, or there's more, it's overflowing. I have more access to ways of being of service and to making a difference for people when I feel a sense of groundedness and presence and on purpose, whatever it is, right? That joy, just that joy that wells up and that I can sustain that and feel that every day. It just gives me more access to things, right? So I am a better everything, right? A better friend, a better coach, a better member of society, a better just in all ways. It just so it's so allowing that, and that's such a hard thing for women, right? It's just allowing that. It's like we tend to take the scraps, right? Or just to take a back seat and to just be so mindful of other people's needs, right? And this has been my journey, particularly growing up as a very sensitive person, an intuitive kind of person, an empath, right? Just feeling everybody's stuff, right? And like learning how to like sift through that and know what belonged to me, and how to, when I created healthy boundaries, that I was better human being, right? A better listener, a better friend, a better, just in all kinds of different ways. And so that's just been just a great kind of a way to just remind myself that this work is so important, because it's important for me, and it's important for me, it's important for other people, because I just keep making a difference. I get to make a difference. I get to show up differently. So just wanted to add that part. Welcome, Terry. Can't hear you. You're on mute. There you go.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm late.
Oh, no worries.
One thing after another, but I see that you recorded this one, so I'm gonna take the time to spend the time with you when you're all doing other things.
That's perfect.
It sounds like it's really good. I love the word flourish. And I think that's a great goal.
Yeah.
Put the things together that.
It is such a powerful word. Ooh,
Yeah.
I love it too.
Yeah.
Adding that to my values was like, I had 6 values for a while, and then adding it as a value was so powerful because I realized that was missing. And so I wanted to ask both of you, do either of you, how are you doing with your list of 5 to 7 values? Do you want to discuss any, are you having trouble weaning them down, or is it getting clear smoothly for you? Do you want some support around that as part of the workshop?
Right. I have courage at the top of my list, and I think that's a hard one to put at the top when I think about it harder.
Do you have, what are your other ones? What do you have as your 5 to 7 or?
I just had it in my hand. It's just been one of those everything is everywhere days.
Mm.
Um,
I understand. Well, Terry's looking for that. Carmelita, how are you doing with your lists? Are you able to hone them into that? That step 2 is that one that's finding that one essence word or that consolidated word that is the theme. How was that going for you?
Yeah, I'm still working on that. I think for me though, the main thing that is consistent at the top of my list is family. That's the biggest value that I have on the planet. And this work, I mean, I have to build this family. It's crazy to me. You know, I don't know, where am I going to get this husband? Where am I going to get these children? Where, you know, so that's really the main thing for me right now, because I have a bit of a career going for myself, meaning I've been working on my own business and I've been able to live and survive. Have I flourished in it? Not quite yet, but I'm in school now, so that's part of the value, me, you know, the education portion to
Mhm.
get the career going. And but really at the end of the day, I said, if there's anything that I'm going to regret, it's going to be that not getting that done. So then that's really been my main focus in this values work. Is it has showed me that I'm not aligned whatsoever. I'm not aligned to my values. And I think that explains why I have that dissonance, and I'm a little bit, you know, I'm just not fulfilled. I'm not fulfilled. I have joy though. So it goes to it.
Mhm.
The doctor, I didn't catch her last name, but it's so weird because I'm living certain values, but some of them are lacking. And so then there's this emptiness that I feel,
Mhm.
this dissatisfaction.
Mhm.
And think about that. It's really around I have some really great friends, but there are other places. I need to
Mhm.
build all of that here where I am. And
Mhm.
I've been successful at that. I haven't flourished at that. So that's the main thing that I'm focusing on. I haven't brought in everything, but education, family, health, vitality,
Mhm.
uh, you know, resilience, and just keeping joy. Those things are things that I really value. So yeah.
So so the family part is that's a big one. I mean, that's really a big one. So there's I guess the question that I have, the first question that comes up is what will you feel when you have that? When you have the family that you want, what is the feeling that you expect to have when you have that?
Well, I hope that it'll make me feel purposed on the planet. You know, reason to be here, to be a feminine woman. And I understand now that really I do value like taking care of, you know, taking care of somebody and
Mhm.
being the
Mhm.
boss too, you know, like I need to be the boss of something, you know. And when I say that, not just meaning I'm going to dictate, but I really need something to own, you know. So I'm working on the dog thing because I feel like that's going to be the first thing I can be the boss of. But yeah, I think that it'll just create so much
It-
purpose for me as a woman.
choose a dog over a cat if you want to be the boss, right?
Yeah.
Just as a word. Yeah, and it's like, so it's like, you know, that's like the sense of purpose, the sense of giving to another human being, or being a steward, or being like the person that shapes another person's life,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
that you, or like the sense of having somebody be dependent upon you or needing you. Those seem to be like what's underneath the word family. When you think, I mean, like, you know, the larger word, right? So what is it about family that is so powerful to me that I really
Mm,
want to access, right? So it's
mhm.
like, so the family is like one piece of it, but there's, I would invite you to think about what that creates for you, what need that fills for you. Because when you think about the need that it fills, then that becomes kind of that's the central core of what the value is, right? So the value is that nurturing, or the value is, whatever, that's that intimate connection that you would have with a partner, or, walking through life with somebody else in that way that's different from friends and different from, anything else, right? That's special, a deep bond, so those become the things that represent that piece about family. Family, when I don't know how it resonates for you when you think about the word family, if it gives you all of that, because maybe family is a piece of that, but there's like more layers to it. It's around that connection. It's around that belonging. It's around creating something that is uniquely yours. Like there's all these other pieces to it. It's around having that, not just the dependence, but the interdependence that happens when you are in relationship to something, to an animal, to a person, that they need you, you need them. And there's this give and take, this is energy exchange, is like really powerful, right? So I don't know, Amy, what do you have around that?
I think that's beautiful, Sheila. And the word belonging really was what I heard underneath a lot of what you were saying, Carmelita. And I think one of the things with values too, and this may be why you were feeling like you weren't living up to it, is we want to, it's about how we're going to be with our family. As it's hard when we have a value as a thing that we're trying to create as a goal. It's a different than a goal necessarily, or a dream, or a desire, or a vision. Our values help shape it. So the value is who you want to be, or as Sheila was asking the questions, like what are the parts of the family that are resonating with you, or that you're feeling that pull towards. So like if an exercise to do, I don't know if you've ever done like a word map. Do you know what a word map is? So, you would take, it's like you draw a circle with the word family underneath in it. And then you can put all these other lines around it, like a sun. Here, I'll write it out for you. I'll draw it on my paper here. It's not going to be pretty, and then you put here these other words, and it's another way of making a list, basically. So it's something like that. Can you see that in the camera?
Yes, beautiful.
So if it's the word belonging, or connection, or nurturing, or being a boss, they all kind of go around here. And then you kind of look at them and go, which one, when you say it, do you get that kind of, how does it feel to you? Because having a value of a situation we cannot control per se, which are people, places, and things outside of us, is going to make it hard to do that. It's more about like defining who you want to be in the family, how you want to be as a part of this family, or the leader of the family, or the boss, how it's kind of underneath that, rather than the family itself as the value. It could be loyalty, right? These could be loyalty. It could be belonging. It could be, if you want to tell me some of the words, we could put it on here and send it to you in a picture.
Yeah.
You want to do that?
Spelled it out, and you just added more, but I will continue to work on that. That's very revealing to me, because it's true, like to be able to influence someone with my thoughts and values that I'm working right now.
Right. And as a mom, I am a boss of nobody. Like, just saying, and my dog, I'm not the boss of anybody. And they will tell you, because I wanted to raise girls who use their voice, and guess what? They do. And so, and
Lord, you.
I'm grateful. So I've had to learn how to not be a doormat, speak my truth, set boundaries, set limits, all sorts of things, have guidelines in the home, but we can't really, I can't control them. When they were little, I could hold them with what I would say loving hands if they were having a tantrum or something. But unless I'm going to intimidate them or seduce them by like bribing them, I did used to bribe them for airplane trips because I never gave them things like that. So I'm like, you do this, you get a ticket, and the ticket lets you buy, like that. But those are the kind of things, unless you're using something like that, you're really not controlling. Just giving you the FYI there. But from my personal experience.
Right. But I would guess that it's really more about shaping, really being able to shape and to mold and to really influence and to just like to inspire and to have that, to really help to, like, I call it shepherding or, bringing someone into the, making a difference, right? It's like instilling what's important to you for that next generation, for somebody that you deeply care about. And that's so powerful, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like such a powerful urge. It's so powerful. I mean, as a woman, that's like, that's the center of creation, right? Is bringing forth life. And so, yeah, absolutely. But I think that what Amy is saying about it, the difference between the thing and the experience of the thing is that as you define your values, you still get to have the experience of it, either in the presence or the absence of the thing itself, right? So even as you are creating a life where you are inviting in a partner and you are getting to the point of bearing children and having all of that happen, right? You still get to experience what it feels like to be nurturing. You still get to experience what it feels like to be in connection, to, like, be the boss, or the caretaker for your little, animal companion. You still get to have some of that, right? So it's all is not lost. So it's like, this is at the core of who you are. So you got to express it, right? This is the way that you express. And so when you understand that, then you get to own it and to live it, even as you set the goals and have other things in mind for how that's going to show up and manifest.
Yeah. That makes sense. And then in a sense, family will be under all of them to a degree, all your values. Instead of it being its own value, it will be under, how am I going to flourish in my family? For me, I can speak for myself. How am I going to flourish? How am I going to have a sustainable family? How am I going to have a creativity in my family? How am I going to have collaboration as part of my family? So it'll end up being looking through the lens of the different values about your what kind of family you want to create. And you'll see how we already have it too, which then helps it manifest in a different way.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So
I got it.
Yeah. I just want to just acknowledge you, Carmelita, because you always come with such transparency and your willingness to just show up and not have the answers and just to be open to what's possible, I think is just brilliant. And I think that, that's such a great asset. It's such a great way to be as you're becoming, because this is all of our journey, So, just keep doing what you're doing, and it's going to get clearer. You're probably closer than you think.
I think, and I'll pass the mic over to Terry, but one thing I have to say is, the universe does listen. The universe listens and will deliver, because it's not a coincidence. And I understand that, because you ladies have shown me, like, this is literally where you are, but you wish to be like over there. And even with the breaking down of the family, wow, it's like I can feel a sense of relief, a release each time a link to the chain is cracked each time. So I thank you ladies for creating this and getting together and sharing it, so, but anyways, I'll continue to work on my values and to get clear the things. I hold my workbook dear to me, the words, it's the words, I feel like I'm learning Spanish.
It is its own language, right?
It is. So
yeah.
but thank you. I'll let Terry take the floor now.
Terry, we've got a couple
I
of
just
minutes.
wanted
How do we
thank
support you?
you, Carmelita. That was great. And I wanted to say to you that one of the things about a dog is that it's always happy to see you. Whereas with family, it's not always true.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, and animals are so in the present. They're so in the present moment. Oh my God. That's the brilliant part. They are just like so happy just to exist, right? They just bring that perspective. It's like, yeah, life is good, right? They're just happy. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun having
Yeah.
animals.
Absolutely.
Well, I did find a list. I think they're a bit broad, but I see that courage and integrity and trust and honesty and autonomy make the top right now. And I think what courage applies to at this point is the courage to let go, letting go of sentimental things, because they're just things, and I don't have to have the things to remember the experiences and the people.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
there's some kind of protection in keeping it, but I don't really need the protection either.
Mhm.
Sort of
Mhm.
like the protection of, I'm not sure protection, but anyway,
Mhm.
trust is a really big issue. And I think as I've grown to be the age that I am, it has come up more and more because of different things that have happened between friends and my husband and I. And it seems to be such a um, mutable value among people. I mean, trust and truth, I think, have a lot to do with each other. And so, uh, you know, there's a lot of different things that build trust, and there are a lot of different things that break down trust. And so I've been trying to make a kind of a um, one of those kind of word in the middle, and then all the things that are tangential to it about trust, and truth was one of them. But what's that reminded me of that that word chart was that in my classroom I put the word love in the middle to find out what all the words were attached to love. And it was incredible in a classroom of international people, all the different things that were attached to the word love, with love in the middle and all these parts. I mean, just like yours, like that. Where did it go? There. And all the kinds of things. And I think love should be at the top of the list, actually, in values. It's such a complicated word. And all these others like family and connection and autonomy and thriving and flourishing, it seems to me that, and you yet have the sign right in back of you, you are love. Yeah, so I think I'm in the process of moving love to the top as a value.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that you're really starting to make some progress in terms of like really going inward to figure out what is most important to you. And I guess and they're all going to, I mean, like love is like everywhere, right? So it's like it may be at the very top in terms of how you operate, you know, and like I would have a harder time, and I don't know what your position is on this, Amy, in terms of ranking your values. I think sometimes if you rank them, especially early on, it tends to diminish some of the other ones that have equal weight, but in a different way. Like they all need to exist, right? It's like love is like the foundation, right? So it's definitely there, right? But it's like, but the for you, truth is something that's very important, and that trust in the truth, and so it's like they're all equally important. They all fit into the tapestry. They all work together, and they work independently and interdependently. It's like it's hard to have one without the other, right? So it's like I guess I would just caution around putting them in a rank order, and
Mhm.
just accepting them as being a part of what's incredibly important to your sense of well-being and who you are and how you are in the world,
Mhm.
and to focus there. Because so for me, for instance, love is not one of my values, but is it everywhere? Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
Right. The same with courage. I don't have it. I haven't named it because I have other ones, but courage fits. It allows me to do those things. It allows me to be authentic and to be authentic and to be true.
Mm.
Because if I didn't have the courage to do that, I would shrink and I would not be my best self and I wouldn't show up as I am. I'd try to be somebody else. So courage is there and it's a part of it, yet I haven't named it as the value. And love is in everything, right? Because it's self-love, it's love for others, it's love for the environment, it's love for nature and all sentient beings, right? But in my value, like reverence for life, it's not, I don't state it as love, but love is definitely a part of it, right?
Mhm.
So it's getting to like the essence, and sometimes the words that we've associated with those words that we have, honesty, integrity, freedom, they're amazing words. Do they really get to the core of what's important for you and how it's important, how it shows up? And so it's just keep drilling down and encourage you to keep drilling down. What is it about love that's so important for you? What is it about her being courageous that's so important for you? And see what else comes up for you around those things.
Great, thanks.
Beautiful. And it's after 12.
Oh my gosh. Yay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we
And I just want to thank you both
absolutely.
for being here, doing this work, showing up time and again, and celebrating with us too, because we've been doing this one whole year. Woohoo.
Woohoo.
And
I love it.
yeah, and and as Sheila said earlier, it is just a process. And I also wanted to just say to what you were saying earlier, I tend to not rank my values. Certainly I picked my value as my intention for the year as flourish, but that wasn't a rank. It was just meaning I was putting that in the forefront of my mind for the year, because I was recognizing that I wasn't living it as much as I wanted to. And some of these words are so big. And I want to say this last thing. I know we're over time, but in the back of the workbook, there's a short section called Navigating Roadblocks. And that may be helpful to read too, because some of the things that we talked about today are in there, and it may give you some ideas about how to find your way through this. Because what I would say is, how does that word feel to you? Truth or trust. So for me, truth and trust is part of my integrity value. And because integrity is about walking the walk, doing what I say I'm going to do. So it's like, which ones when we talk about rank, we don't talk about rank, we talk about what's on top, and what are the ones underneath it.
Mhm.
Not necessarily ranking the values, but ranking the groupings. Not ranking the groupings, but gathering the groupings and picking one that is the one that resonates the most with
Right.
our
It's just
inner.
finding that word or phrase.
Finding that word or
is
phrase,
Really just
yeah.
like, oh yeah.
It may be a phrase too,
Yes.
around about the truth and honesty. And then some of our groups can kind of come together too, if they're similar. So, but as I said, we're at 12:10.
We will, yes, and we will, and to
But
be
we'll pick it up
continued. Be continued on Sunday.
on Sunday for sure. And also go into Values Connection, so we can have a conversation in there too about
Yes,
it as well.
yes,
There's some
yes.
prompts in there to answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you both so
Thank
much. So
you.
glad. Yeah. And you, Amy. It
Thank
was a
you.
Pleasure.
We were
Yeah.
going to do a minute of silence for Veterans Day to thank all those who've been of service. Would you all like to do that with us?
I would love to.
Okay. I'm going to set a timer for us to do that. because Sheila and I were talking about, we recognize that people who have been of service make it possible for us to have the freedom to do this work. They do sacrifice so much. We both have family members who have, and I know their reach is far and wide. So let's take a minute to thank them for their sacrifice and their families' sacrifice too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Until we meet again.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
Bye.
Love you guys, giving you hugs.
Love you too.
Right back at you.
Bye, Terry.
Bye.